I like the heart. Thank you. Hello, my name's Mark. Welcome to Tales of the Unexpected Sync. Okay, so my name's Mark Garfield, and I have a company called Pop Up Music. We're based in London, and we're a sync agency and a music publisher. And essentially, we work within film, television, gaming, trailers, bit of corporate, anything that has a picture, and if it moves, we basically try to stick music to it. But the idea of today is to highlight something that we do rather a lot, which is bringing in the unexpected music. So in particular, languages that are not in English. So also songs that are kind of the unexpected, the off-kilter, anything that's a bit kind of out there. We have had some good experience in syncing that. So we just kind of want to highlight the opportunities that are out there if you have a song in a minority language, or it's a little bit different to the mainstream, or it's just really cool. So we're going to go through different syncs that we've achieved, and I'm going to talk about the process in how they came about, and a couple of little stories and tales along the way with these various syncs. One thing I must say, that we can't play any music, which is kind of a bit weird. We're a music conference, but because this is going to go out on YouTube, it would get whitelisted and we wouldn't have the copyrights. Even though we publish a lot of this music, it would still be blocked. So what we've done is we've done a disco playlist that goes along with this. I think this is quite cool because I think retrospectively, you can go back and listen to this playlist of songs and go, oh, it was that song he was talking about. And oh, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Or what on earth was he talking about? Maybe that. Hopefully not that. So hopefully you will kind of get the gist of why these songs were sunk in these particular projects. The unexpected, different languages is becoming a bit of a trend. So if you do music in different languages, I think you're onto a good thing. And I think the sync world has kind of had its time of syncing big hits and things that, which are really easy and obvious to sync. And I think it's much more creative to pull out some minority languages or to pull out some lost gems tracks or completely unknown tracks and put that into sync. And I think it's much more creative. There was a great sync just recently by the music supervisor, Thomas Golovich, the guy that did all the Breaking Bad stuff. So he got someone to cover a John Lennon song, Nobody Told Me, which is a really cool track. And he got someone to do it in Turkish. And it is just so good. So check that out. I can't remember the series it's in. It's the current series Thomas is working on. But that's a really good example of a supervisor just going out there and trying to do something a bit different. Something that was familiar, putting it in a different language. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the first example of what we've got here. And hopefully this works. Ta-da. Okay. So here we have a movie which was called Prospect. And here we have a Cambodian song. Okay. So this was a minority language because it's in Cambodian. But there's a great story with this. So Dan Wilcox here reached out with a brief. And he said, I'm working on this movie. And it's about space people prospecting for some kind of fuel on an outer planet. Okay. And the director wants some music which the space people are going to play in their helmets as kind of like what they would have on their iPod or whatever, which doesn't sound like it's from Earth. So that was the brief. It's like, give me some music that doesn't sound like it's from Earth. And me and Jim, my partner at Pop Up, were scratching our heads going, what are we, obviously everything's from Earth. We're on planet Earth. I haven't got any publishers and record labels on Mars yet. What am I going to do? So we had just taken on this incredible catalog from Cambodia, which was from the 1960s. And this stuff is unbelievable. So picture this, and this is what you're going to have to do is you have to go back and listen to this playlist. This is surf rock. So it's familiar that it sounds a bit 60s and a bit surf rock, and you're settled in with that. But then suddenly the Cambodian language kicks in, and they're using different scales, different notation, and it's just like, what is this? And we're like, we got it. Let's get that to Dan. We sent it to Dan. He loved it. He said, that is the most alien thing that we can, no disrespect to the Cambodian community, but this is the most out there stuff. And that's how that came about. So it's still a real ace card in our playlists and in our catalog. It's such a cool catalog. And we actually have some stuff from the 70s as well, which is equally out there. And it's quite amazing. So, yeah, and that was, I don't know when that was. I think it was around about 2016. It was an indie film. It didn't do particularly well. I think it won a couple of awards. With the idea with the music being in the space helmets, initially they wanted it right across the movie, and I think they could only use it a couple of times because it was an indie movie and because of the budget. Okay, so that's that one. Let's move on. Okay, we're going to stay in the East. And this example is, so first of all, the project was a BBC series called Giri Haji. Anyone see that? Hands up? No. Okay, go back and watch that if you want. It's a great series. And what we did with this one was the show was set between London and Tokyo. We have a relationship with a record label in Japan, in Tokyo, called King Records, and they have this artist who, Kimi Emery, by the way, is the artist, and she was a 50s performer. She's very famous in Japan, but she's kind of lost and forgotten in the Western world. No one kind of really knows it. But I would describe this music as Shirley Bassey, big band, really, really luscious, outrageous, fantastic recordings with a Japanese vocal. It's so cool. It's, again, like the Cambodian stuff, it's just so interesting and such a good different thing, which you're just not expecting. You listen to it and you're expecting Shirley Bassey to come in, and then suddenly this Japanese voice comes in, and she can sing like Shirley. She's unbelievable, and she was a huge star. But again, it's kind of one of those syncs where it's kind of goes into that Tarantino zone. So the particular scene on this was, there's lots of people about to get chopped up by samurai swords and all the rest of it. So they wanted, this is Matt Biffer, by the way. So Matt's UK music supervisor, done lots of really cool stuff. He did all the Harry Potter movies and all of this. So Matt was like, yeah, we need something Tarantino-like. What have you got? And it needs to be in Japanese. So this particular track was just absolutely on point, because it's the sort of thing Quentin Tarantino would use. And when we get to the end, you'll see that we worked on the last Tarantino movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'll talk about that. But we, as a company, get asked for, have you got anything Tarantino-esque? Now, what is that? That can be anything. But in this particular thing of with Japan, this worked out really well. So that was that. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one. This is all making sense, because I know we're not listening to the music and I can't show the examples, but we'll have to go back to that. Okay, so we're coming a bit more local now. Now, this falls under the category of a lost gem. So these two guys in the 90s went to university, formed a band, which was called Harvey, and they recorded some stuff, and it's very Britpop. It's very jingly jangly, guitars. The subject matter's really kind of that 90s period. It's got a real sort of 90s smell about the whole thing, which is really, really, really cool. So this particular series is Love Story, the JFK. Anyone seen that? This is recent. Someone in the room must have seen this series. Oh, I've got a nod. Good, thank you. One nod. Thank you. So, yeah, this is actually was not that long, about 2 months ago, #1 Hulu series. So this has been huge. It's been a massive, massive thing. And my point of this is, this band, they went to university, they formed the band, and they, of course, split up. And then transport to now, years later, a few years ago, we took on their catalogue, and we got this sync for them. And these guys are absolutely over the moon. This is a picture the BBC took of them because they had an interview, and it went out on the BBC of this kind of lost and forgotten project that these two guys did at university. And now, we all know what it's like. You're all musicians probably, or you work in the industry. We all try and make it, and we want the day, and they kind of never had their day. So this was their day. So it's a beautiful thing that suddenly their song is in this huge US show. And what's crazy is they are on the playlist. Okay, so they are sandwiched somewhere between Madonna and some other megastar from this 90s playlist. So they had absolutely no streams whatsoever. I don't think they even knew what Shazam or Spotify was. But before the series, I said to the guys, look, we need to get your music online. We need to distribute it because when this show hits, it's going to be massive. I mean, Jen Malone, she's one of the best supervisors in the world today, and everything she touches turns to gold, and she is a huge tastemaker. We've got another tastemaker in the room, but I'm going to talk about her later. There's a little surprise for you. But Jen is big time. So we made sure that the guys had their stuff distributed. So when this dropped, that anyone watching the TV at home is like Shazamming it and going, oh, who's this unknown band? They've just heard Bjork. They know who that is. They've just heard Madonna. But it's like, who's this band called Harvey with this song called Silver? And so their stats have just rocketed. And they cannot thank me enough, which is the best part of my job, is when something like this happens. So that's very cool. Right. Okay. I'm going to move on. Everyone following along? Yeah, good. A few nods. Good. All right, here we go. So, Paulina, she sat there. No, so Paulina and I, we met. Wave at Paulina, everyone. So, it's good that we have a music supervisor in the house and we can talk about this. So, who watched The Night Manager? Come on, British show. Yeah, here we go. There's some hands up. Great. Fantastic show. So, Paulina and I met in Colombia. Actually, no, we met in Spain before that. But when I was in Colombia, I gathered in a lot of Colombian music. I kind of went on a massive shopping spree, and I worked out with this Colombian music that there was a label called Disco Fuentes, and Disco Fuentes is like a heritage label, and it has just the most unbelievable music. So I managed to get a deal with that label to represent it. So I got a call from Paulina, and she said, you're not going to believe this, but I'm going to be working on the next Night Manager show, and it's going to be set in Colombia. Did you get that deal with Disco Fuentes? I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to go. So I'm so excited about this. It's like, we're going to do this. And we did do it. And we put a lot of Colombian music in the show, and it's fantastic. But guess what the first sync was in the show, which was not Colombian song, happened to be a Syrian song. So I'm like, so the first thing comes through, and I'm like, Mark, do you have any Syrian music? Well, it just so happens that I did, but it could have been a good chance I didn't, but it just so happens that I did. And so the show actually opens with a scene in Syria, and that was the opening sequence. Then it goes to London. There's a garden party. I remember Paulina, you reached out for that sync, needed a hit from the UK. That would be kind of some Surrey people hanging out in the garden, blah, blah, blah. And we didn't get that one, but you put a really good hit in that. I remember, what was the song? Everlasting Love. Yes, thank you. Everlasting Love, a really good hit. So the show opens with this song. So this was just totally unexpected from my point. It's just to know that actually when a show is geographically going all over the map, then it's good that you can have music from all over. So point in case if a show's shot in Scotland, then they're going to want Scottish music. So the cab door opens, it will be good to have a Scottish band on the radio. Do you know what I mean? So we actually got a call for the trailer for this, and I got very excited. I got a lot of the Colombian tracks all stripped out, so you just had the beautiful Latin percussion. I thought it'd be really good for the trailer. And I'm really, really thinking this is just going to be unbelievable as a trailer. Which track did they choose? They chose the Syrian track, so which was a really nice thing for the Syrian track and for the show, and the fact that this track actually worked really well with the trailer. Okay, I'm going to move on. So that's that. I haven't got very long. We've only got 15 minutes. Okay. Some of you would have done the workshop with Patty. Did anyone do the workshop with Patty? Yeah. So just talk very quickly. Patty and I did this show. This was a Mexican film called Bunker. It's really funny and it's really cool. And basically, this guy's got a bunker in his house and he kidnaps some people and it all goes bonkers. So this particular song here was a sync by a band called CCS from the 70s. CCS was headed up by the guy in the middle, a guy called Alexis Corner. Anyone know who Alexis Corner is? Yeah, we got a nod here. We got a hand up there. So he was a pioneer. He was a godfather of the British blues scene. Very important. Without him, no Rolling Stones. Absolutely no Rolling Stones. Because, you know, he had the Ealing Blues Club. He let Mick come up and do a sing and let Keith come up and have a little play. And that's where the Stones form, was in his club. Also, Top of the Pops theme, Whole Lot of Love from the 70s. Now, you all look too young to know this, but this band did a really cool cover version of A Whole Lot of Love, which was the theme tune for Top of the Pops for years and years and years. Very cool. Check that out. But this song we had was a song called Cannibal Sheep, which is just out there. It's just fantastic. It really is quirky. It's off kilter. It's everything. And it's wonderful. I'm going to move on because we've got to get going. We've got some more to talk about. Okay, Stranger Things. Anyone saw the Stranger Things? Okay, Stranger Things came along and Nora Felder reached out to us. Before Stranger Things was Stranger Things, no one knew about it. We get these briefs, they come into us, you read what they're looking for. It's like, it's 80s, it's kids on BMXs. Think E.T. meets BMX Club or something like this. This was very loose brief. Anyway, pitched on it, nothing came of it. Stranger Things came out, it went boom. The whole world absolutely loved this show. My mates kept saying, have you seen that thing called Stranger Things yet? I'm like, no. I said, you'll love it. There's kids on BMXs and it's all weird and it's all wonderful. Anyway, I gave in and I watched it. And the first sync in the first episode where Nora used White Rabbit, which is just an unbelievable sync. It's kind of like, this is not a kid's show. This is for adults too. It was like dropping an acid pill into the show of that song, White Rabbit. It's just such a cool sync. Anyway, roll on season 2. Right, I'm gathering up 80s stuff. I'm trying to find 80s stuff. Like, there's Stranger Things is happening. Comes round, I pitch Nora all my 80s stuff. It's like, Nora, no, take this. I've got this band and this is amazing. Season 2 comes out, nothing. Third season comes along. I'm getting more 80s stuff. I'm getting some bigger names. I've got like some really cool stuff. And I'm like, Nora, you know, I've got Wang Chung's first demos, you know, come on, we've got to get this in here, you know. Wang Chung, they were in Breakfast Club. It's 80s. Let's do this. It's like, yes, Mark. Okay, I've got Kids in America. I've got the Rat catalog. You know, Kids in America, Stranger Things. They're kids. They're in America. Surely, come on, it's a big hit. And like, no, the Duffer Brothers think this. They think this is too on the nose. This is no good. So it's like, you don't want Kids in America by Kim Ward. Come on. No, they don't like it. I tried it with them. Okay, season 3, nothing. Season 4 comes around, and guess what Nora picks? She doesn't pick a song from the 80s. She picks this weird song called Transit to Bermuda by this band called Dorian Zero, which was from the 70s. And this was just so cool because this goes with the character. Now, those of you that know Stranger Things really well will know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the guy that has the pizza shop and the van, and he's a surfer, and he's kind of a bit of a hippie dude. Okay, so it's that character. And Nora's like, well, his world's not going to be the 80s. He's not going to be listening to what the other kids are listening to. He listens to stuff from the 70s. So this track was actually recorded at Electric Ladyland by Eddie Kramer, the producer that produced Jimi Hendrix. This is such a cool song. Well, I'm going to move on because I haven't got very long. Okay, so Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now, the point of this, and I could talk about this forever because this is my favorite thing in the world, because when I came into this industry, at the top of the list was Tarantino. It's like, I want to work with Tarantino, and I did, or we did, pop-up music did, which is a fantastic thing. But the point of this conversation here for everyone in the audience is you never know when a sync's going to come along, and you never know how to be prepared. So basically, see this album cover, I kept seeing these Italian records soundtracks being released in Italy on vinyl. There was a company doing it. So I basically contacted them and said, is anyone doing this stuff for sync? And they went, what sync? I was like, great. They don't know what sync is. I'm good with this. So we started to take over with sync for these incredible soundtracks from Italy. So we've got like spaghetti western stuff here. We had soft porn soundtracks. We had crime films. We had all of this amazing music. So what I was doing is I was putting out these posters. We do a thing called Track of the Week. And I was putting out these posters, and I was doing this each week because I just loved it. And I've been in contact with Mary Ramos, and I knew that Mary was Quentin's supervisor. But at the time, I had no idea about this movie, absolutely no idea. So as I was putting out this, Quentin's actually doing this. And so I got a call from Mary to say, you know all that stuff you've been putting out as Track of the Week? Well, I'm working on this movie by Quentin Tarantino, and he wants that one, and that one. And I was like, yes, yes, yes. So it was just unbelievable. And it was one of the easiest syncs I think I've ever done, because I just said yes instantly to it. And which you would, wouldn't you? You were not going to say, no, Quentin, I want an extra $2,000. No, you just say yes and you go for it. And so I just kind of wanted to share that story, really. There's a lot more to that story than that, but what I'm trying to say is, within sync, if you've got something unusual, if you put it out there and the universe is lining up, then someone will catch it, and it will catch on, and it will happen. And so, these were lost and forgotten soundtracks. They did have a day, they did have a life, but Quentin, being Quentin, puts it on his playlist, and then suddenly they've got another life, and it's quite incredible. So I think I'm way out of time. Of course I am. Oh, hang on. There we go. Any questions? Please have a question. Oh, we got a question. We got 2 questions.
Just for that, you talk about, in terms of your job and stuff like that, as taking on people's catalogs and things like that. What are things that artists, unsigned artists in particular, should be bearing in mind of that process so that they can potentially catch your eye?
It's good to be ready. I mean, in the workshop we did prior to this, we're talking about metadata. We're talking about getting yourselves what we call sync ready. So in the UK, you join PRS. You make sure you've joined up with PRS, and you make sure, most important thing is the rights. So even though you're in your band with your mate down the pub and you're all good mates, you should have a proper agreement with your mates, not the handshake of, we're all good here. Because the minute money comes into things can get different and things can change. So I would say, even if you're the best pals with your bandmates and you're collaborating, then you should definitely make agreements that, okay, who's written what? Because you don't want to be getting to that stage where you're giving it to someone like me and you haven't got all that stuff organized. So I would just say, do your due diligence and get everything nicely, tightly sewn up.
Cheers.
There's one here. This is good. 2 questions.
Hi, thank you. I have 2 questions. First one was, I really want to hear that playlist. Where can we?
It's in the link below. No, I don't know. No, I've made it. I sent it to Olaf and the team, so Wide Day should have it.
Nice.
So yeah, please do check it out, because it will all make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's a fun thing to retrospectively go back and listen to it.
Absolutely.
Particularly the more unusual ones in the minority languages, with like that first one, the Cambodian one. hopefully you will agree with me. It's just like, it's about as close as you can get from not being on this planet. Again, no disrespect to the Cambodian artists, but it's very cool.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, it will be somewhere and it will be available.
Great. And the second question I want to ask, as an artist who's producing music, would it is it a requirement to have tracks quite flexible in terms of if music supervisor really likes your track, but they want some elements out of it or something like that?
Really great question, and I would say 100% be flexible and don't get too precious, because what might happen is, remember, and this is a really important thing, sync is there to support the picture. Okay, it's kind of not the other way around, unless it's a massive montage where the music is the prime focus. In sync, the music is there to support the picture. So often in a scene you will have dialogue, so you have sent your track, and then the editor will want to put in the instrumental at that point, and you're like going, no, you can't dip out, the chorus is coming up, and like the director's, well, actually I need to get this bit of dialogue over. So as artists and musicians, we have to be flexible and we have to be ready for that. On that point, as a technical issue, is make sure that when you in the studio and you're bouncing out your mixes and you've got your vocal there and you've got it all mastered and you've got it all really happening, make sure that you master the instrumental on the same day with the same settings, because I've heard it and I've had it happen where the engineer or the editor in the edit will have the vocal track, he'll put in the instrumental that's been given to them, which hasn't been mastered. And of course he's just like, oh God, I've got to remix this whole thing and I've got to bring it up. And he's just like, they have the power to kick it out and say to the music supervisor, have you got anything else? Because this is a pain this is a pain. It doesn't work and it's not flowing. So, I think definitely, your master vocal and then your master instrumental. I wouldn't go as far as to say doing all your stems. You don't have to quite go that far, because obviously when you're stacking the stems up and they've all got mastering on it, it's going to sound pretty funky, right? But so keep it quite probably just those elements, and then obviously if you need a bit more technical direction, then the studio will come back and say, hey, we need this and this. I've just had one with an Irish track actually, where we needed to get all the stems done for that, and I had to get some mastering done on that. Yeah, so I hope that answers. Great. We're out of time. I've got that look from Craig. But as you can tell, I can go on about this stuff forever because I'm very passionate about it and I love it. So I'm going to be around today and tomorrow. So if we want to speak more, then come and grab me, ask me questions about this or anything else that you want to know about sync. I'll be happy to chat. Thank you.